sort of community space that people use during the day, and then also, of course, for functions like this in the evening. So it's my absolute delight to welcome Terrence Winch and Don Berger tonight for a poetry reading and a presentation of Irish music as well. When Don came to me and said that Terrence had a collection coming out and that he was also a wonderful Irish musician, I couldn't resist suggesting that we get to see kind of both sides of his artistic personality on display, and so it's going to be pretty fun to do that tonight. So first I get to introduce Don Berger, who is the more local of the two authors, and I think probably known to many of the people in this room. He teaches at Johns Hopkins and was here not that long ago with his most recent collection of poetry. I guess it was a number of months ago now, which is a really interesting collection called The Long Time, which is Don's poetry, and then alongside the German translations by his artistic collaborator and friend, a man named Christoph Koenig. Don, it was his third collection, and his poetry and prose has also appeared in lots of publications like the New Republic, Conjunctions, the Iowa Review, and then of course publications across the ocean where he spent a fair amount of time living in Berlin, in Leipzig, and Budapest. So we'll get to hear, I think, first from some of Don's poetry tonight. And then it'll be followed by Terrence Winch's poetry, and specifically his newest collection, which is The Known Universe. And Terrence is down a little farther from the DC area tonight. And The Known Universe, Michael Lawley has described as including litanies, prayers, anti-prayers, traditional forms, untraditional forms, skepticism, jokes, declamations, soulful pleas, love notes, philosophical theories and inquiries, wordplay, rhyme, and it went on from there, but I thought I would leave the rest of those lingering as possibilities. So I think we're going to get to hear a lot of wonderful language and sort of varied kind of literary incantations tonight. It's his seventh, or his eighth, I guess, collection of poetry. I think there were 7 previous collections, including one, Irish Musicians and American Friends, which won the American Book Award. And then 2 story collections, including one, That Special Place, New World Irish Stories, which draw on his experiences in the acclaimed band Celtic Thunder. And of course leads us into what will be the final component of the evening, which is some wonderful Irish music by Terrence, and several members of his families, and then other musical collaborators. So thank you for being here. Thank you to Don and Terrence, and the musicians who will take part. And I think it'll be an incredibly wonderful night. And actually, a couple of other things. We've got some complimentary Irish whiskey on the side, just because we kind of couldn't resist. So that bottle over there, feel free to take part right now, if you want to scurry over, or throughout the course of the evening. Yeah, scurry, exactly. I'll just keep rambling, so it buys you some time. The other thing I can't resist saying is that on June 16th, we're going to be having a Bloomsday celebration for the first time. So over on the side over there, in case you've been waiting to read Ulysses until now, we've got copies. We've also got some other Joyce-related books. But you can also come back on the 16th. Again, eat, drink, browse, and also here from 11 in the morning until 8 at night, there will be excerpted readings from Ulysses, and we'll have some sort of fun Ulysses-themed things going on, and maybe some music again at the end of the night, possibly a reappearance of Irish whiskey. So, if you're here tonight and that sounds fun, come back. But now I'm going to hand it off to Don, and again, thanks for being here.
Geez, Emma, I thought it was the Winch brothers who brought the Jameson, so thank you very much, Emma, for all that you've done with this series and in setting, with all the readings that happened here and setting this up tonight. I also want to thank Emily Miller, who's been great in publicizing the event through the IB Bookshop, Greg Langan for taking care of books, ordering, and Harrison Bonfasuto for this wonderful sound system that we have, the great mic, and getting everything ready for us and for the music that's going to follow. We're going to read in 10-minute segments, 10 minutes each, twice, so we read for like a 40 minutes straight. If you do have any wishes for Jameson while I'm reading, if the poems become unbearable, you're fidgeting or whatever, you really do want another shot, I won't be offended or distracted if you move back over there and get something. Or even food, for that matter. Okay, there used to be a tradition in Boston where you read somebody else's poem as a kind of preface to the reading, and it's not hard to do in this case. The person I should thank most for this is my friend Terrence Winch, whose idea it was to have the reading And this is the book, Falling Out of Bed in a Room with No Floor, that I discovered first of his in a bookshop in DC and was blown away by. I'd had his name on lists of people I should look up for years. And then I read half of this book in the shop and half of it driving home, and looked him up, and about a week later we were sitting together in Starbucks. And that was in 2012, so we've been friends for 6 years now. So this poem is called Witch, W-I-T-C-H. Dominique is my barber. She dreams she is a witch. It scares me, she says. I look like a witch. People stop me on the street and ask if I'm a witch. It must be my hair. She fingers her witch-like hair. She lets them know she is no witch. I don't like the occult, she says. Me neither, I tell her. I believe in a spiritual dimension, I say, and she looks at me funny, as though she thinks I really am into the occult. Like full moons, I say. That kind of thing. Oh, full moon, she says, reassured. I go crazy in the full moon. She shows me a note from a customer whose hair she cut the other day. The customer is a composer and invites Dominique to a performance of his work. It's a dumb note. He condescends to her, telling her how his works, which he says invoke France, her homeland, may bring a tear to her eye. We both laugh. I tell her I attract crazy people, and in fact, just got a long letter from a crazy person. You look like the actor who played Jesus in that Zeffirelli movie that was on TV, she says. Yeah, people have told me that. I discovered what made him so strange, she said. What? I asked. He never blinked. So maybe I should blink a lot. Keep the crazies away, I say. Yes, blink all the time. Boy. Reading out of this book. I think I'm going to read, not that you're all chomping at the bit for stuff from the long time. I may squeeze in one poem from this or two, but I want to read some other things. I guess they're all newer things, and I haven't rehearsed, and I don't know how long all this is going to take, but that shouldn't scare you. I'm not going to read all of these poems, so don't worry. This is a short lyric that also I wanted to be a kind of epigraph for my reading. No title. There was no way to tell whether what I'd write would mean anything. To sleep with my soul on. I don't remember a lot, but it was tremendous and still seems like it. The sunlight and trees not begging for description. Time not worried about where wind comes from. Yes to 100%, not 99.9 anymore. I love how they told you how long to keep your tea bag in. That when you write enough, break off the first branch that brushes against your hat on your way home and bring it to me, the legend of the ones who couldn't stop laughing. Don't forget loose, the word that means close to your tongue. Don't feel like you have to be saying something. Rose in Washington, you jokingly accused me of thanking everyone and everything in the world. I forgot to thank you, though, so I'm going to squeeze that in. Thank you all for coming. It's great to see so many of you here tonight. I am going to read one poem from the book. Even just to be able to just hold it up and show you this cover, which is a painting by a friend of mine. I think even when I get tired of these poems, finally, I'll still be able to look at this cover. This poem is called Ex-Poet, and there is a Marine, there's a term ex-Marine in here, and I have a neighbor who is a Marine. I thought he was an ex-Marine, but he corrected me and said there's no such thing as an ex-Marine. So, Ex-Poet. I think I'd like to be an ex-poet, as certain people are ex-Marines. I made this decision only this morning, and up till now, it's feeling good. Like when you know never to flee with someone because you love them so much, and it would take a Marine to convince you otherwise. And in the meantime, I think I'll attend to my frames, my samples, my shelves, the structures I promised to build back in the yard. Plus, I like to sing, perform magic, think about the flowers, put the strap of my binoculars around my neck while sitting slouched in the director's chair, hoping the cardinal or else the albino black squirrel, I'm serious, will happen by. I like to envision myself eating what I've cooked, then giving it to someone else. Every horn that rises to the attic window, every branch that seems to wear its leaf with as much as ever was possible, reminds me of a certain life I've had and still have in the control of my bonny self. The other hobbies in the past I've listed, certainly, but that haven't come back to mind. I've read a handful of longer poems, so I'm going to reward your patience, tolerance, with several short poems. I think I'd like to spend the rest of my life writing really short poems. These end almost before they begin, so you have to pay, you got to be there. This one's called Your Umbrella. If your umbrella is missing, I know where it is. Rita's Hand. Terrence asked me to read this once in his basement and taped it, filmed it. So he was the one who encouraged me to have it be a poem. So another dedication to him, shameless dedication. Rita's Hand. What about the night when I was holding Rita's hand and by mistake kissed my own? That, whatever you would want to call it, if in music you might call it a passage, appears in another 5 or 6 poems of mine all over the place. It really did happen. It was unbelievable. And neither of us said anything, which is really crazy. That was 9th grade for you. Okay, this is called Please. Reflected 3 birds fly across the glass, reflected off the glass. Please say if there's a problem with this poem. Report a problem with this poem. Thank you. I like it. I like it. I want it to be you, but I will settle for it. One of the great, that's it for the short ones. Now you're going to be flogged with more, no, not the long ones. One of the great pleasures, aside from just writing poems, one of the biggest kicks I've ever got out of writing poetry is when I find a poem and I don't recognize that I wrote it. I forgot that I wrote it, it was buried in a folder, and I, for a moment, don't even recognize it as my own. And I think it's better than my own stuff. And then I start to realize that it's mine, which is a great, great feeling. And this is one of those. It comes from I have these manuscripts stockpiled, and this one's set in Germany. It's from a manuscript called Laugh and Learn. It's called If Feet Had Wheels. I feel better with new days coming on. The urge to replace myself with something larger has gotten small. Everywhere I look, people are starting to move with grace on the streets of what I hope will only feel like the present. On Richard Strauss Strasse, this is in Germany, in Berlin, on Richard Strauss Strasse, I throw away a plastic bag empty of nuts. And even as a boy stops me and says, "Excuse me, one is not allowed to walk against red." And I say, "Okay," and he says, "Next time." My eyes move just as freely in their sockets. That was a true story, too. Cut a deal with the boy. This is an attempt to just describe something right in front of me as it happened. You know, landscape, realistic landscape. For now. She looks like Meadow in The Sopranos, the gangster's daughter, playing lacrosse in the field right here with a boy. Nothing is going to happen. No one is going to seem sorry. He throws the ball way off and she screams at him behind the window and keeps screaming. Why? What is wrong at this stage of time, with the grass so green still and the sky really soft and relaxed for now? The rose of Maine, and that's the state of Maine. If love weren't so enormous, I would live with its two hands on me, forever lifted. Where else could silence bed with adoration, like a color spreading down a coast? It's true what life does across a desk, what next week is, how days kiss, and people get wet. I'm organizing seed head on. Skin and then life builds from its chowder of questions on the street. Whose blue billiard ball is this, so far from its table? Whose can emptied? I'll read just a couple more and then turn it back over to Terrence. I always wanted to have this opportunity to read, there's the story of Frank O'Hara reading with Robert Lowell on Staten Island. When they got there, and O'Hara was very testy and, fighting, squabbling with Robert Lowell subtly. They were from different camps, artistic camps. O'Hara bragged when he got up to the podium and said, "I wrote this poem on the ferry coming over." And then when Lowell got up, he said, this poem is his own poem. He said, "This poem is called The Skunk Hour, and I did not write it on the ferry." So I say that because this is maybe the last poem that I've written. And so I always wanted to have this opportunity to write something on the way, and I didn't. But this is close enough. And one of my poems has the line, I think it was Yogi Berra who said, "You are only as good as your last poem." And this might be it. A psalm of some kind. That's psalm as a poem. You could see the roots of a lot of the trees. This opportunity not to tell the train was in motion again. The trees mattered. I wanted you to have this freedom like speech, the sight of white hair on my arms. Kids must feel it. Kids must feel it. We bet they're not perseverating on whatever the teacher had on them. We needed to go. We were lazy, and we had to not vacate New Times Agency. But then 2 days ago pipes in, when activities threatened not to go on. There was the house you managed to escape by finding the different rooms to permeate, right? Some of what issued made a person balk. This was not the TV, to think of it as I didn't do anything. What were they doing down the hill, cutting trees and putting orange fences where they were? Never fretting over line breaks, not checking time when the leaves start falling. A woman walks like she was supposed, on the hill, everything and sweat and likelihood, a psalm of some kind, and still browns, grays where the light post looked tired looking down and hearing men laugh, getting through, books piled, stacking, standing on shelves to borrow, and watching the trains go down the coast, not exactly, south, and still on some edge of the coastal plain. Through force of not wanting anything, I saw what we wanted. There must be a system for how this was what to say, and how the people and earth. When the man asked, "What are you writing?" "Cool, what kinds of things do you write? Are you a writer? Anything I want to know about?" There must be a system to how this was what to say, and settlement by the tracks as sure as lint and hair on this ocean blue shirt. Thank you. Last poem. Thank you so much. This is dedicated to Terrence, and he's never heard it or read it before. It's a surprise poem. So if we don't, I should give you all copies. We could all read it to him at once. Sing it to him. It's called The Day, and it has a central theme, so you'll see, for Terrence Winch. Lightning flashes between the bottom of the thunder cloud and the ground. Plants get so cold that moisture in the air freezes them instantly, the way water changes. The Greeks used to think wind was the earth breathing in and out. Now we know it's simply air on the move. It's in mare's tails, cirrus. When warm, moist air rides up slowly over a bank of colder air, layered or in heaps, mackerel sky because the ice crystals look like scales, a cloud taller than Mount Everest. The air cools and turns to vapor, to water, vapor, rain. You know rain when cows are lying down in the field, clouds bumping into each other, the biggest raindrops 1/5 an inch across. When the air is too cool to hold all its moisture, fern frost on the windows. Once snows covered the ground. Snowflakes, they all have a six-pointed shape. The wind too weak to lift a feather can swamp the shore. The wind blows for about another 6 months north, then turns around and blows another 6 months. Warm, moist air pushed up over a mass of cooler, drier gusts that rattle windows. Lightning and thunder happen at the same time, but the light moves faster than sound. The sky isn't always blue, he said, as sunlight bounces off dust and other particles. The sun must always be behind you. The pine cone opens in dry weather, a sphere of change. Cold air is heavier, blobs of air. Why the wind blows, why the winds blow. Air scraping against the universe, Michael Burke called it, maybe in Salem once. No, Essex. A cloud that breaks the rules, unless we grow tall late in the day. A glory is a pale ring of multicolored light, like rain that doesn't reach its destination, predicting tomorrow. If the earth were reduced to the size of a large apple, each sphere takes a turn at being tilted, freezes straight into crystals, freezes with height. When air is forced to rise as it passes over hills, droplets heavy enough to reach the ground, raindrops 1/5 of an inch. Snowflakes bump and shatter as they fall, with attempts to trick the cloud. Throw wind sideways from their path. Smoke drifts, wind felt on the face, leaves and twigs move, flags flapping, small trees sway. The land warms faster than the sea. Local winds people give special names. When the clouds appear comma-shaped, the lightning exits through an open window. Narrow blue jets, the sound of air expanding at incredible speed. The wider apart the legs, the larger is the shock. Lightning strikes a lake, river made wider and deeper to hold more water. Clouds of topsoil block out the sun. The gas scatters sunlight in all directions. Mock suns called sundogs. Clouds pile up like a stack of plates. Waves may develop in winds. Rain bands 140 miles wide. Weather driven by sun. The air lets the sun pass. The rays come in at a slant. The earth rotates at 1,000 miles per hour. Which way does the earth spin again? Left or right? The cloud can reach 6 or 7 miles, causing a gray day. whatever we decide to do. Thank you.
Come back. Tomorrow I will rise at 6 a.m. I will remember the names of the 1959 New York Knicks. Carl Braun, Kenny Sears, Ray Felix, all of them. Also the names of the people I love who seem to have disappeared. I will go to the 24/7 Safeway to get the Sunday paper. In the car, very special music will be playing. Maybe Bobby Gardner doing Mrs. McLeod's in D, followed by the Raw Bar Collective's version of Showman's Fancy. It will just be starting to get light. Holiday decorations are blinking all over the neighborhood. I love the Safeway. Everyone's so friendly. I think of Michael Polanyi's theory of the tacit dimension, that we can know more than we can say. At age 13, the Knicks were gods to me. You tell me the elm trees started disappearing in the 1930s because of Dutch elm disease, but scientists have developed disease-resistant elm trees. Soon, beautiful elms will appear throughout the land, and all will be as it once was. I lost a good friend about 15 months ago, the novelist Bill McPherson, also a friend of Michael's and maybe some others here. He won the Pulitzer Prize in 1975, I think, when he was still at the Washington Post, where he originated the book world section, and then left the Post and went on to write a few highly acclaimed novels. Anyway, I visited him in the hospital a number of times, and this was I wrote this about 2 weeks before he died. And it's kind of a story within a story kind of poem called Heartland. He thinks there's a fire truck coming at us from across the room. The umbrella on the patio, he thinks is the back of a statue of a saint. But everything else seems normal. Nurses come and go. Medicines flow through tubes into veins and arteries. Visitors bring candy. I read a little from 2 books I brought to distract and amuse him, but they don't grab him. I try to remember a good story to tell him. He has 2 weeks' worth of grizzly beard, but otherwise looks surprisingly good. I tell him the story of how we once played a gig with Pat Boone in the basement of Richard Vigory's mansion in Virginia. It came about because we knew Jack Haley, the Tin Man from The Wizard of Oz. Jack, in turn, was the uncle of a right-wing crackpot congressman named B1 Bob Dornan. Pat Boone was a supporter of B1 Bob and other lunatics on the right. Jack put in a good word for us, and there we were in the dark heartland of reactionary America. They must have suspected we weren't down with their plan to roll back the New Deal and unsurrender at Appomattox. Pat Boone had a big hit with his sanitized version of Little Richard's Tutti Frutti, not knowing it referred to anal sex. Our fiddle player was in the middle of a psychic breakdown. This was 1979. As we were hauling the PA through the now empty dining room, he started stuffing silverware into the pockets of his army field jacket. No, don't do that, we implored. These crazies will kill us. Our fiddler didn't care. I also tell my friend that I met Jane Lahr years ago and got to know her. She looked a lot like her father Bert, the Cowardly Lion, and Lay's potato chip frontman. I never met Ray Bolger. When I'm about to leave the ICU, he says he doesn't know if he'll ever get out of there. I say, I love you. He says the same back. It's true. It is never anyone's time to die, least of all the ones we love. I Uber home through the choicest neighborhoods of the city, the sun shining bright, not a cloud in the sky. Thanks. And I'm going to finish off with two short new poems that are kind of political. And I'm going to send this first one out to Chris Mason, very dear old friend and one of my favorite writers. This is called Preamble. We the people do not like fish. How many times do we have to tell you that? We the people form perfect smoke rings, puffed out in perfect rhythm. We the people, in order to establish boundaries, need for you to back off, dude. When we sit down for a purpose, but when we get up, everybody else seems to be sitting down. A guy named Bill was just here to borrow money, but we told him we would provide him with no coin, because we the people are the ones who make the rules on land and water. Even the skies are not safe from us. Sometimes we're required to go out and discipline our inferiors. We provide and maintain a freezer full of ice cream and sausages. No person shall be eligible to seize our cans of Reddi-wip, nor shall any person deprive us of 2/3 of the coats that hang in the closet. We shall meet with you at noon on the 17th day of December in front of Whole Foods. Good luck finding a parking space. Do not belittle us ex post facto. We the people are on the loose and we're coming for you. Thank you. And this is called Poor Country. Oh, poor country, a big beast has slobbered all over you, and now you are so slimy. Poor country, remember how happy we once were, with our trees and parks and little lakes filled with happy ducks? Now the concrete is cracked and the iron rusted. The eggs in fast food are not really eggs. The cops are killing us. The judge owns the prison he wants to put us in. Our vote goes right into the shredder. We can now clone a monkey. We can fix a dead brain. We can sterilize 1 trillion mosquitoes. But at night, before we fall asleep, we weep for you, poor country. You are now a virus, and we have shut down all the hospitals. Thank you. So give us about 10 minutes to set up and we'll play some tunes for you. We're going to be switching the mic back and forth, but the mic seems to have just lost some. It's all right? Sounds all right? It sounds like it's very soft. That's better. That's better. So these are 3 polkas that we're going to start with that are on a new recording that Michael and Jesse and Dominic and I did last year, which is available back there somewhere.
while. And you'd never met the man, isn't it? You'd never met him. But it's called In Praise of the City of Baltimore. In close proximity, there's a fair vicinity, attracting tourists by the score. For urban pleasures, there's no place measures up to dazzling Baltimore. Its Hopkins Plaza could suit a Raja with the lovely splendor of its plain decor. Ah, the food is filling and the nightlife thrilling in up or downtown Baltimore. I could speak for hours of its wondrous towers that soar towards heaven and pierce the skies. But one erection to man's digestion, the Bromo Seltzer Tower takes the prize. Go visit Fells Point, it's filled with swell joints, so rife with atmosphere and naval lore. And from every nation under creation come mighty vessels bound for Baltimore. In this fair city, the girls are pretty, and the boys all gentlemen without compare. And the smell like roses entices noses when McCormick's spices perfume the air. Drive your car and park it down Lexington Market, and your mouth will water at the foods in store. Be you wed or single, your tongue will tingle at the grub for sale in Baltimore. In this locality of congeniality, where Mr. Poe cried, nevermore, where the birds play baseball and the crime rate's so small. Sure, the cops are idle in Baltimore. For sophistication and recreation, you can hit the streets or take a walk. If in nature's treasure you take your leisure, I recommend nearby Dundalk. Well, this municipality invites analogy with other places famed from shore to shore. Towns like Secaucus, LA, Columbus, and exotic places such as Singapore. But for love and brotherhood and respect for motherhood, no other place gets my encore. So let's all be thankful for this charming, tranquil, and gorgeous city known as Baltimore. There you are now.
That's Dominic Murray. We're going to ask, that's right. I'm going to have my favorite child here, Michael, play a tune or two on the fiddle. Since we'll get Billy to join in with Michael on this. Yeah, we don't know what we're doing, and we're working it out though. What are you going to play, Mike? Okay. You want to do As Luck Would Have It first?
Sure.
Yeah. He's going to do a tune of his own first called As Luck Would Have It, and then a couple of tunes with Billy. Well, you may have thought that the poetry had ended for the evening, but that's not the case. Because I can't resist doing this when I have Dominic here. This is called Dead Stop for Dominic Murray. We played a fundraiser twice a year in the Teamsters Hall on Capitol Hill for about 10 years for a powerful congressman from Queens. His parents were from Mayo, as I recall. He had a perfect head of thick brown hair that stayed young, even as the face underneath it grew older. Beautifully groomed, dressed in expensive designer suits, he would accept envelopes from a procession of benefactors. We were really only background noise at these kinds of events. They paid us well, fed us delicious food, and demanded very little. In fact, most of the time, we would just sit there while people made little speeches in praise of the congressman. That's the kind of easy gig musicians love. Just sitting around eating and drinking, after which someone hands you a wad of cash. None of us ever really spoke to the congressman, who seemed pleasant enough, but aloof, distant. I don't remember him ever even making a speech. He just gloried in the adulation of his cronies and supplicants. Thus, year after year, all these gatherings blended into one. So similar were they all to each other. Until this one particular year, when the unexpected happened. We were cruising easily through the gig, never breaking a sweat, occasionally playing a tune or two, all as per usual. But then, in a dramatic departure from the script, the congressman's chief of staff came up to us and said, "The congressman would like to sing a song." We were amazed. The congressman, who had never spoken, never even made a few passing remarks, whose voice we had never heard utter a word, wants to sing. This was such wonderful, exhilarating news. The routine, the predictable, the ordinary were about to be discarded in favor of who knew what. "I didn't know the congressman sang," I said to the chief of staff. 10 years, twice a year, and he's never so much as proposed a toast, and now he wants to sing. "Yeah, he likes to sing every once in a while," the chief of staff said. "Well, do you know what he wants to sing?" I asked. "No, he'll work that out with you guys." We couldn't wait. A minute or so later, he appeared before us, all smiley and friendly, though we had the impression that he was noticing us for the very first time. "Congressman, we didn't know you sang." "Oh yes, I love to sing." "Well, do you know what key you usually sing in?" I asked. He shrugged and smiled patiently at us, suggesting that this was a truly ridiculous question. My brother Jesse is always adept at quickly locating the key of guest performers, so I wasn't worried. "What's the song you want to do?" we asked. He looked at us as though the answer to that question should be self-evident. "Danny Boy," he said, and we knew this would be really good. He hummed a little, Jesse found the key and strummed a chord, and the congressman launched into this great classic of Irish smalts.
Danny boy,
he sang, as we started to follow along. But that was it. Just, "Oh, Danny boy." He looked at us, a bit panicky, to supply the next line. The pipes are calling," I whispered, and he quickly returned to the mic and belted out,
the pipes are calling.
and then stopped dead again. "From glen to glen and down the mountainside," I prompted, and he echoed into the mic.
From glen to glen and down the mountainside.
It was as if we were winding him up phrase by phrase. I can't even remember if we came up with enough of the words to get through a passable version of the song, to the part where the mother in her grave requests an Ave from her son, and listeners everywhere begin to weep. We're going to do a few jigs right now. The first is keys are D and G and G, as a matter of fact. And these are called, well, the first one is called Kundla, but it's also, is it the, you wouldn't know, you're not good with titles. Well, that's one name for it. It's also a song in Irish. The second is a slipjig called Nakanavan Vana, which means the little white canavans. And then the third is the blackthorn. Blackthorn stick or just blackthorn?
longer now. It's 1984. So, earlier in the evening, Terry called me his honorary brother. That's quite an honor, I gotta say. And in fairness, I left Detroit in 1979 to come here to Baltimore. I was 25 years of age. I'm here now 39 years, and so I have known these two boys longer than I lived with my own family, and true enough, they have adopted me as their honorary brother. It's really very good for me. But I wrote a song about my father's story and my father's voice. He was on his way to Australia because Australia was giving free passage. They'd reimburse your passage if you stayed for 2 years in Australia and worked. And so he got this far because he had an aunt in Detroit and figured, what the heck, I guess this is far enough from home, I'll stay here. So this is a song called My Own Culture, which is the name of the townland that my father was born in. It's many years since I left my home and family far behind. In search of bounty I set out in hopes that I might find a place where I might be content and where I might remain. A rambling son I did become, young fancy from culture, and I set out for Australia's shore in the year of '49, with promise of good fortune and a future so sublime. My mother grieved to see me part, but I could not remain. I had to leave my loved ones home in the townland of culture, but Australia's shore I never did see, or as I made my way, I stopped to see that fertile land they call America, enchanted with the notion that 'twas there I might find pain. No further did I travel from my home in culture. Kind strangers, they did welcome me all in this newfound land, and offered kind assistance, all my cares and worries planned. I courted one who stole my heart, we wed in '51. I soon did long take her back to see my culture, for as I spend all my days spent on this foreign shore, I think on all my loved ones that I never will see more. The memories of Tom Kelly and of Pat and Easy Bond remind me sadly of the life I left in culture. Now as my sons and daughters fair themselves to start to roam, I bid them never to
forget their loving ones at home. I pray contentment fill their heart as their life's course be run, with memories fond as those I have of my home in Culture.
Thanks very much.
Okay, that's Dominic Murray. And we're going to finish out right now with a tune that I wrote for Michael Lally that's on our new album. It's called Lally's Alley, which is also the name of his excellent daily blog on all things, you know, movies, books, whatever, politics. So we'll play that, and then Jesse is going to launch from that into a Bowron solo, demonstrating his drumming skills, known from coast to coast. And then we're going to play two classic tunes that Billy recorded, like, what was that, like 1980 or something? Around 1980, two reels that are sort of, you know, classics now in Irish music. First one is called the Boogie Reel, written by a box player named John Nolan, and then a tune of Billy's called the Controversial Reel. These are real, they're tunes that are known all over the US and Ireland, and probably most of the time are not, the composers are unknown, I would say. Yeah, they get played. Yeah, that's right, that's sort of an honor. Unless they attribute it to somebody else. That's not good. All right. That's right, and the money, that's unbelievable. You need a shovel.